Good evening and welcome to the July 23rd, 2026 City Council work session. And we'll begin with Financial Director, Mr. Masisklis.
Good evening, Mayor. So we are halfway through the year, so I'll go a little bit more in depth on this one than we typically do. Starting with the general fund, you may recall in December of last year when presenting the all funds budget, although we are structurally balanced, that the general fund was projecting about a $200,000 deficit for a couple of reasons. One of them being the transition over to RETA, as well as our investment revenues being deposited to our capital fund, and the increasing cost of the police department and fire department without a new levy. At this time, halfway through 2026, I'm pleased to say we are no longer projecting that deficit to occur. We have shifted those investment revenues back primarily to the general fund, but also to a couple of other funds. So those will be supporting that. We have received 62% of our expected all general fund revenues, but we have only spent 51%. So partially due to some vacancies lasting a bit longer than we always budget for the full year of an employee to be in their seat. That doesn't always happen. So that's a little bit down on the spending side. And then the revenue side is being bolstered. RETA is starting to catch up a bit compared to previous reports, as well as those investment revenues being now deposited to the general fund. So we will be able to sustain general fund without that projected deficit, as well as contribute the additional subsidy to the fire levy that we have mentioned in a couple of our public safety committee meetings. On down to the general fund debt service, that has spent exactly 50% because we have made one of two debt payments this year. Those are always due on July 1st, but we book them in June to line them up with the year. Same deal with our water debt service. It's received 50% of the revenue, but that one is heavily, the principal payment for that one is at the end of the year. So we have spent just half of the interest on that. The water revenue fund is one that should start to jump out because it is now receiving a bit more of those investment revenues as well. We have spent 43% of our year-to-date budget, and then we have received 47%. I'll go on the reverse side and show you why our percent received is less than 50%, which we would otherwise expect it to be. Part of the reason is summer water usage is, of course, a lot higher than winter water usage, and we bill basically 2 months back. So right now, people are getting their bills for April, so it's just now starting to be, it is mid-July. So just now people are getting their bills for May. So it's just now starting to be into the growing season for higher water bills. We still have those set aside funds for the water rate stabilization and improvement. We have not touched any of our rainy day funds for either water or the general fund in a couple years. The water system reserve is the one that probably should stand out the most of anything here. It is not a typically bolded fund because it's not considered a major fund. It probably will be this reporting cycle just due to the value. So we have spent year-to-date $2.8 million from the water system reserve. That is largely due to the water tower construction. So even though that is reimbursed from the OWDA via that low interest loan, we have to pay out of our funds and then get the cash back from OWDA. We also, that is the fund that is spending for our water meter replacement. So there was $400,000 budgeted this year for that. The original revenue estimate was mostly just that OWDA water tower loan, $8,863,300. However, we have received much more of that than the water tower progress would show, and that is due to the $2.5 million water tax. So of the $2.7 million that we've talked about several times, 2.5 of that was the water tax, leaving a cash balance of $3,155,125 in that fund. Of course, our cash policy, so our floor in that fund is only $300. Sewer revenue tells the same story as the water revenue. Less spent than anticipated, but slightly less than 50% received, still on the right side of that equation. The refuse revenue fund, I had moved the rest of the employment expenses, save I think one individual is still getting paid out of that, so that is why we are at only 38% out of 50% spent in the refuse revenue fund. However, our percent received is 50% because those bills are not usage dependent; they're flat every month. So the reason we shifted what little we could of our employee expenses and the administrative expenses out of that fund is, we're expecting to get hit by a pretty big increase in rates from Rumpke when we go out to rebid next year. Some surrounding jurisdictions, Lebanon and Monroe, even though they're bigger and they do have a little bit more bargaining power with Rumpke than we do, they're now paying higher trash rates to Rumpke than we are. So we do expect an adjustment next year, but that will be a negotiation as always. In the stormwater fund, percent spent 52%. So while we have taken individuals out of the refuse fund, they do have to be paid from somewhere. So some of that is coming from stormwater. Percent received 54%. This one is going to continue climbing above budget due to what was previously farmland in our industrial park is now paying the stormwater commercial rate. So their bill is, I think, about $1,700 a month. Police levy and fire levy are operating as expected. Those are both subsidized by the general fund. We are within budget for personnel and overtime in both of those funds, despite our new events that have been added. Tax increment equivalent fund, that's down fund 253. So year-to-date spend is $950,000. We use this to adjust out of our street and water funds where applicable for new developments. Our revenue estimate was $1.3 million. Year-to-date received is less than half. The reason for this is the Butler County, they pre-split our funds so that the schools get a portion of the tax increment fund and the cities get the rest. They calculated it incorrectly in the first half bill. I notified them, they understood, and they said, if you want us to bill the schools for that amount, that's between you and them. I spoke with the school district treasurer, and we both just kind of figured it would be best that the county pays us our entire amount, and then we will just remit the remainder to the schools so that we can be made whole without actually billing each other for that. That negative is still in the TIF, the Magnolia Industrial Park, and that is, again, due to the county applying a tax refund to SHAPE. So SHAPE Corp had a county enterprise zone agreement that they only just got credit for, and when you get credit, they go back to when the agreement was actually signed, so they got 3 years of taxes back to them, and they took that out of our settlement. Moving on to the reverse side, our income tax, as I've mentioned, is still behind last year's, but they are starting to catch up. We're about 2% above what we were last month. The property tax pilot and rollback, one of the reasons that is below last year's, not only due to the state property tax credit changes, so individuals are paying a little bit lower rate compared to last year in terms of property taxes, but it is also because of the pre-split from the county being a little off. We do expect that to hit the 4 million mark by the year. Water and sewer, those are just under 50% of where we would expect them to be, partially because, again, the growing season those bills won't be hitting for a couple months, but also our year-to-date gallons produced by our treatment plant is actually 28 million gallons less than year-to-date 2025. Part of that is due to water loss mitigation, but part of that is just lower residential and commercial usage of water. One of the bigger water users was right here. I think it's called Cameron Square, the retirement home. I think they may have a lot of empty rooms right now, and they're significantly less of a user than they were last year. Carvana was a little bit down on usage as well. but homes by and large have used a lot less. And again, 28 million gallons year-to-date left over the entirety of our system. EMS transport revenue is above where we were on budget-wise, and it's remarkable to me that just maybe 3 years ago we were at 240,000, 250,000, but our new billing and the run volume has also increased substantially, so that does partially fund our fire department. Interest is well above where we would expect, and we will certainly exceed that budget. Gas taxes a little bit behind where we would expect, but they're still in line with our budget for the year, and that goes directly towards the paving fund. Vehicle registrations are also in line. Bank statement balances are below, and then our year-to-date bills, or our project to-date bills to Miller Valentine are also below. And that is all with the SNAP.
Thank you. One question, what are our chances of eating the refuse fund? Because I do have friends in those other communities, and they said that it's a substantial raise that they got from their previous bill.
What are our chances of?
What budget-wise, I know we don't know the final numbers yet on how much we're going to be charged in addition. And I know in the past, we've been able to mitigate that cost by just pretty much eating it as a city. But what are the chances that we can continue to do that? Because like I said last meeting, taxes are going to go up 22% again. People need a break somewhere.
I will disagree with the property tax item, but in terms of, I mean, we have been giving breaks on the refuse bill for the past 4 years. I mean, I've consistently given significantly less of a raise than Rumpke has given to us, and we've been eating into our balances. It really depends on what council would want out of a service provider. I mean, there are terms in the Rumpke agreement that potentially they could trim that would decrease their cost of service to us. In terms of the city eating costs, I would have to look into potentially eliminating the refuse fund and rolling it into another one, because there wouldn't be a purpose of having a refuse fund if the city is going to pay for more than what we take in.
Okay, let's start negotiations early if we can, so we can see what those options are. And then we'll just go ahead and look at all of our options, and we can ask the public what services they really want to use and what services they don't, and we'll go from there.
Regarding the wage scale, the wage scale itself is not seeing any raises to current employee, any raises or cuts to current employees, or the scale itself is the full-time scale. The part-time, I'll mention that briefly. There is a retitled position that has been unfilled for quite a while in the finance department. There are a couple positions that Public Works had believed that are more in line with other positions in their hierarchy. So a couple of those were downgraded one, a couple increased one, and there is a new position, assistant to the service director. That is probably the biggest change. And then the other large change is the part-time. When the entire fire department got a new wage scale about 3 years ago, the end of 2023, I think it was the end of 2023, the fire department got a new wage scale. The fire chief was left out of that increase, and so this is adding that back in. The fire chief pay is based on a 20-hour work week, which we know that our fire chief works significantly more than that. And even at a 20-hour work week, compared to other departments, we were about only 50% of what 20 hours of those fire chiefs would be paid. So this brings that up to about 80% of what those other fire chiefs would be paid. And this is just a first reading.
Any additional questions? All right, thank you. Go on to Mr. Ziffel.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. Before I go on to the item on the agenda for our work session, I wanted to mention items 1 and 2 under our unfinished business, the resolutions related to the proposed annexation. I would respectfully request that we table those until the next meeting. We are still working through the administrative process, and I will tell you, we are waiting for one final recording of a deed, just to clarify, to make sure all the legal descriptions are perfectly accurate. Literally waiting for it to be populated so that we have our proper references in the petition, and it'll be all. The deed was submitted by Duke Energy, who is a participant in the annexation for part of their parcel. They submitted it electronically, puts it in a queue at the mayor's office, as opposed to hand filing it, puts you at the top. Every day we're waiting for that. We should have an update in the next 24 to 48 hours. I can field additional questions about that now or later, but in the interest of time, I just wanted to run quickly through the legislation that's up tonight regarding the NCA. It's first reading. There's no suspension of the rules, so we're just going through the first reading, and this resolution authorizes the city manager to sign a petition to create what's called the Trenton Square Community Authority. This is what's called a new community authority under Ohio Revised Code Chapter 349. It covers about 75 acres in Trenton Square, the residential lot. And what this does is it creates the replacement charge, essentially the tax revenue, the real property tax revenue from the parcels, going through the standard process of going to the auditor and then coming back to the city. Under the NCA, it'll come back to the city to, this will be the same amount as otherwise the taxes will be. There's no more or less taxes on these lots than any other comparable lot in the city. Just wanted to be clear on that. But because this revenue is a community development charge as opposed to a tax, under this structure with the NCA, it can be used to fund community infrastructure and facilities in Trenton Square, including the roads, the sidewalks, utilities, city building, police and fire, EMS. Creation of this NCA has been contemplated since the inception of that project. Comes to council now because development of the residential lots is underway and the authority needs to be formed before those completed houses work with the developers council to settle on this document. This resolution, once it passed after second reading, it's only the first step. Once the city manager signs, the petition is formally filed with the city. I know that seems redundant, but that's how Ohio Revised Code Chapter 349 requires it. And then after it's filed with the city, there will be a public hearing and then an appointment of actually a board to oversee and make sure all of the community development charges are appropriated, collected, and spent to the appropriate projects such as the roads.
Any
I
questions?
know that's a lot in there, but it's another layer with the CRA on those lots that just it allows those the tax value from those improvements to go directly into the city and repairing and improving its infrastructure.
Could you please speak into the mic so that we can hear?
I'm so sorry.
Is there? Can we get additional microphones so that everyone can have their own microphone? Just so we're not sharing microphones.
I apologize.
No. It's probably something we should have done long ago.
It's a great idea, Mayor.
So any questions on the
I'm gonna
new
write that
community
down.
authority for Trenton Square?
Thank you, Mr. Ziffel.
Thank you, council.
A question procedurally, since we're tabling this for the second time, does that make us have to do something special when we vote on it?
Check right now, but don't believe so. I'm just gonna double check though. I will double check right now before the meeting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zipfel.
Thank you, council.
Mr. Nichols.
Thank you, Mayor Perry. First item, I was asked to look into a community cats trap neuter release TNR program. In looking at that information, I could not find yet any grants that the city could apply for. What I found is that most of those grants go to humane societies and municipalities that have that are operating animal shelters in and of themselves, not a community like ours that does not operate a shelter. There are organizations that take 2 community cats per person per day, and we can look at potentially partnering with the Humane Society or Paul's or a local veterinarian and kind of see what that may come out to.
Okay.
So.
Any input from council on that? I think that's definitely, I have the city of Franklin's thing. Maybe we contact them and see what they're doing. I'm not going to read the whole city of Franklin Facebook post, but it seems like that was a pretty good start to a program, and then we'll just piggyback off of theirs and figure out what fits us best.
All right, that's all I have for that item. I do want to kind of walk through project updates. So as it relates to Trenton Square and the municipal building, the parking lot is still scheduled for the first week of August to be put down. The block masons are installing the interior walls and exterior brick. The slab pours are continuing inside the building. Exterior brickwork continues, and they're on the southwest side of the building. We are still on track to have the building all dried in, which means roofing, windows, and doors installed by early September. So that's great news. As it relates to basin number 3, we've gotten the written recommendation. Now we're waiting on the engineers to review that recommendation before we move forward with basin number 3. With the collector roads, the curbs installed, basin intermediate asphalt's installed, electric gas conduits are installed. Duke is on site, putting the electric service for the development and the city complex. Gas install is scheduled to begin in October. City sidewalks, ADA ramps are scheduled to begin any day, and once the sidewalks are down, street lights will follow the sidewalks. Off-site improvements, paving's completed, street lines are installed minus the stop bars, all the signage is installed. We're waiting on a confirmation date for the traffic poles. That's kind of the biggest thing because we've got that intersection there, but we're still waiting on when the traffic poles are actually going to be delivered. Additionally, as I mentioned earlier, electric is being pulled to the site, so even if there were traffic poles there, it's not energized. So we're waiting on Duke to get everything taken care of on that side of things as well. With the splash pad, it's open. The punch list has been satisfied. The inner security fence remains a little bit longer. The rule signs have been installed. We've submitted for the $50,000 ODNR grant reimbursement. And then one particular interesting item to note is that since the splash pad has been opened on, July 2nd, 851,000 gallons of water has been used. So kids are out there playing around and running around. With the elevated water tower, we're at 148 feet high. There's the last pedestal pour, and then you'll see the concrete dome and then the metal structure to follow. We're still on hold with the missing sidewalk piece. Local paving for 2026 is scheduled for a bid opening next week, and then that'll go to council for review and approval after that opening. The Ohio Public Works Commission waterline replacement project opening is scheduled for early August, and it'll go to council for review and approval after that bid opening. And as everyone, I assume, has noticed, State Street has been a little bit busy and backed up because of the urban paving project by ODOT. So they started the base repairs and will begin the ADA ramp upgrades and things of that nature. So that's all I have for project updates. I do have a request to go into executive session to consider confidential information that is directly related to a request for economic development assistance under any provision identified in the Ohio Revised Code 121.22 subsection G8, or that involves public infrastructure improvements or the extension of utility services that are directly related to an economic development project as necessary to protect the interests of the applicant or the possible investment or expenditure of public funds to be made in connection with the economic development project, and to confer with legal counsel.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from council?
Can we add hiring and firing of personnel onto that as well? And you mentioned the splash pad, city manager. Are we going to have a ribbon cutting or a grand opening on that, or has that been postponed?
That's a good question. I think the intent was to have a ribbon cutting event. Yeah.
Well, it's been open for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Can we get that scheduled? Is that possible?
Yeah.
I did have one comment on the State Street paving. Seen a lot of comments where people said they didn't know it was gonna happen, which, you know, it was on Facebook and on the city's website and things. But could we possibly get some, even though this isn't our project technically, but can we get some signs made up maybe to use in the future that just says road construction to begin on, and then we could put the date on the bottom of it with stickers or something where we could use those signs over and over and use those from time to time when we are going to have a project going on, just to try and inform more people.
We can certainly look into
Somebody made that suggestion on Trenton Talk, and for once I agree with a suggestion on Trenton Talk. I thought it was a good idea.
Anything additional? All right. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So move.
Second.
Councilman Rourke and Vice Mayor Croucher. Roll call, please.
Mr. Rourke?
Yay.
Vice Mayor Croucher?
Yay.
Ms. Montgomery?
Yay.
Mr. Profit?
Yay.
Mr. Nichols?
Yay.
Ms. Butts?
Yay.
Mayor Perry?
Yay. We are going into executive session at 6:57 p.m. No further business will be conducted in work session, and we will see you back promptly at 7:30 for the council meeting. Thank you.
I forgot his mic again.
I know.